Hi everyone, my name is Sandy Berrigan. Thanks for tuning into my video. This is basically gonna be my testimony about how God saved me from the New Age religion that is very popular right now. I think it's very important for people to know, all the extra little things, because it's crazy how the devil can, use all types of things to lure you in. It's very dangerous, especially because we go into these things without God's protection, and then that's when things get really bad. And I just want to, make people aware of this so that hopefully I can help stop some of you from going any further, any deeper. All right, let's get into this video. So pretty much this whole thing happened to me back in 2020. So it was during COVID. So how it all started was pretty much in March of 2020, my grandmother passed away. And so I was going through a very hard time because she was pretty much the rock of the whole family. She kept everyone together. Without her, things are never the same anymore, but life goes on. And so I was going through a hard time pretty much. And that's very important, because I feel like the devil will attack you when you're at your weakest point. So after my grandmother passed away, I started trying to get more connected to my spiritual side, because I felt like, she had just gone to the other side, and I was just thinking there has to be a way that I can still connect with her, sorry. So I started trying to, look into this spiritual stuff and find ways to connect with my ancestors or my angels and stuff. And I was already introduced to crystals at that point, because it was actually a family member of mine that gave me my first crystal, and he gave me a pink rose quartz, which is it's honestly a cute crystal. You wouldn't think oh my gosh, this is demonic or anything. So I totally didn't think that at all. And he gave it to me with the intention of it healing my heart and bringing more love into my life and stuff. So I only thought positive things about it, right? Actually, the person who gifted my family member his first crystal was a very wealthy, a very successful real estate person, I don't know. And so she kind of let him in on a little secret, right? So when she gave him the crystal, she told him that he had to write a list of 10 things that he wanted to manifest, or 10 things that he really wanted, right? And so she said, on the full moon, you need to write this paper, write these 10 things with a pencil, and then go outside in the full moon at night, and you have to burn the paper. But obviously before you burn it, you have to meditate on these 10 things and just really put your heart into it, that you really want these things to happen, and whatever. So he shared that with me when he gave me the rose quartz crystal. So before my grandma passed, I had already been practicing this, because I had been asking for her healing every time I did this on the full moon. I always made sure to write her name down, and now that I think about it, I don't want to blame myself for involving her in the witchcraft, but I think life itself is just gonna happen the way it's gonna happen, so I was really into this. And honestly, I don't believe I ever saw any of those things come true, but it was just so addicting to have something to look forward to every month, thinking oh, this is gonna happen soon, so let me go outside and burn my paper, and at that point I thought that I was still close to God, But I didn't realize how I was like slowly drifting away, because now I was giving the moon power, you know. And like, I still believed in God, but I was kind of praying like, oh God, please, you know, make this moon manifest everything that I want, you know. And so it was starting to get a little weird, but I was just like, whatever, you know, it felt right at the moment. And so I kept doing this for a couple months, and then I started, you know, trying to research more. I started buying more crystals. Like, I went to the crystal store, and then one time, the first time that I ever went, I felt like as soon as I walked in the room, or not the room, but like the store, I felt this like heaviness. Like, it was so heavy, and it just felt weird. Like, instantly it felt weird, but there was always like a part of me that would like question things a little too much, and I'd be like, okay, maybe this is a good thing, you know. I'd try to see things in a positive way instead of, you know, seeing it for what it was. And so it just kind of became addicting, like going to the store and buying a new crystal. And then, you know, eventually I started having a whole collection. And like, I would meditate with them, I'd go outside. And so there was part of it that did help me, I feel like, but it wasn't like because of the crystals. I think it was just me taking time to myself, like going outside, like in the ocean, or, you know, just in the backyard, like sitting outside in the sun, like with my bare feet on the floor. Like, there's that stuff is like naturally healing, you know. But I was just kind of connecting everything to the crystals, so it felt good. Like, I felt like I was doing things right. And so, like, as time went on, I was just getting more into the crystals, and I started noticing that like even animals were like being like, they were kind of more attracted to my energy. Like, I don't know, you know how when there's like little birds, like the little tiny birdies, and they're outside like in the morning, and sometimes if you come out, they'll just like all fly away. Well, they wouldn't do that with me. They'd stay where they were. It was like I didn't bother them at all, you know. And I liked that, because I was like, oh, like, you know, they like my energy, like it must be good, you know. And so, and I thought that this was due to the crystals, but not knowing that this whole time it was just the light within me, which comes from God, you know, it comes from Jesus Christ. So that kind of started like getting me, like luring me in a little more. And I started to see like butterflies and like, you know, blue jays. Like, it was just so many things that were just like, it was like a beautiful experience in the beginning. So I loved it, and I was just like excited to learn more and more. So I think it was July, just kind of fast forwarding. I went to Trader Joe's. It's like this store, right? And I was just buying, I forgot, I was like getting like some chocolate lava cakes for my sister or something. And I was wearing a crystal, like a amethyst. I had just bought one, and it was like a big purple amethyst crystal, and I hung it on my necklace. And so I was walking, you know, through the store, and I had seen this guy that was like staring at me, right? And I get so awkward when people like look at me, when I can tell that people like think I'm cute or something. It just kind of like makes me like, let me avoid them, you know. So I like had seen him staring at me, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go around this way, you know. I tried to avoid him so much, but then I ended up going around, and then the next thing you know, like I come around the aisle, and I look down, and he's like right there at the end. And I was just like, and then he turned and looked at me as soon as like I came around the corner. And so I was just like, damn, like I can't run back the other way because it's gonna make me look weird, you know. So then I was like, all right, just keep walking, like just push through it, just ignore him, you know. And so I was trying, and I was like rushing, like power walking. Literally, I'm always power walking. And as soon as I like, went right behind him, he turned around and he's like, oh, excuse me, can you help me find the ginger? Like, he was looking at the powders. And so I was like, sure, and so I was like looking, and like I couldn't find the ginger powder, and I should have known he was just lying. Like, he just wanted to talk to me. So then we started talking a little. I was like trying to leave, but he's like, oh, I like your hair, because my hair was blue at the time. And then he was just like, oh, do you have Snapchat? Whatever. So, and he asked me about my crystal. He's like, yeah, like I'm getting into crystals. And he was wearing a crystal too. But it was kind of like it was like multiple, I don't know. Have you guys seen like those rainbow ones? I don't know, where it's like a bunch. I don't even know if it's actually a crystal or it's just like a little wannabe crystal. I don't know. But, so he was wearing that. So he used that as an excuse, right? And so obviously me being into the crystals, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is like the universe or whatever. Like, I thought it was like, oh my God, this is probably my soulmate or something. And so we started talking, like we exchanged numbers, and then we just started hanging out, right? So this guy was actually vegan, and like he started, educating me about his lifestyle and stuff. And eventually it got to the point where he was telling me that he didn't believe in God, that we, us ourselves, are God within, and like that pretty much religion and everything is just like people being weak-minded and not wanting, or being fearful, of just being out there, that they feel the need to go under like a religion to feel safe or to feel like secure or whatever. So like I'm very open-minded, so I was just like, wow, like I was like amazed by everything he was telling me, because I was like, I never thought of it this way, and like he was a very smart guy, so the way he would explain things, like it just made so much sense. And like he honestly motivated me to go vegan, right? Because I was like, man, like I, now that I feel like I'm getting more, or I'm becoming more spiritual, like I want to try and like not eat animals, I want to be pure, like, so I just went cold turkey. I went straight to being vegan, probably like in August. So literally probably like a month after we met. And so I went vegan, and then I started noticing like things were kind of changing. So I was already at with the mindset that I didn't really believe in God anymore. And because I was just thinking like, that's so true. Like, why like we are able to do anything ourselves. Like, if we are part of like God's creation or part of the universe, like why can't we be great too, And I also noticed that my ego like grew huge. Like I became this person where I was conceited, like even more. Like I thought I was better than people. I thought that people were just ignorant and like asleep, like everyone throws that around so much, like, oh, you're not woke or whatever, but in reality, like that's just the stupidest thing ever. Like, yeah, you can be woke, but it's like I think of it in a different way, not so much like not so much like you're in a religion so you're not woke, you know what I mean? And so at that point it was already becoming like fall, right? And so I started noticing that crows would come around, and I started finding like crow feathers like outside of my door and things like that. So I started to kind of, because I was so open to like everything, I was trying to see the good in everything. So I didn't think negatively about the crows, I was thinking like, oh, poor crows, everyone thinks they're evil and like blah, blah, blah. So I was like, I'm going to be nice to them, like they're actually really smart birds. Like people need to appreciate them more. And so I started just kind of like, I guess, building a relationship with them because I started to feed them. Like I went and bought pumpkin seeds because I was like, I want to give them something that's healthy. Like, I don't even know. And so I bought this big old thing of pumpkin seeds, and every time I went to the store, like in the parking lot, I would just throw it and they just all come. And then eventually it got to the point where I felt like they knew me. Like they would just find me wherever I was. Like they would just come to me. Before I even threw the food out, like they were already waiting for me. And so I was already starting to build this relationship, right? And then I remember one day I was at home, and since it was during COVID, I was not working. Well, I was doing like my own business stuff, but I wasn't super invested into it. And there was this one night where I was up all night just doing research on my phone. It was so weird. It's almost like I was getting brainwashed and I didn't even realize it, you know, because I started getting all these weird thoughts like, oh, I need to be like closer to the crows. Like they're part of, like, you know, they can be part of the light and the dark because they're used as messengers. And like, I was just getting really deep into like the witchcraft without knowing. I had gone to this one store and bought like candles, and like I just bought a whole bunch of stuff. Like I don't know what the heck I was doing, but I was just doing it, right? So this one night after I was like researching and stuff, I was up. It was probably like 3 a.m. I decided to go in my bathroom and smoke marijuana because I used to smoke a lot of marijuana. And suddenly, like I looked down at my at my pajama pants, and I started seeing like these flashing lights, right? And it was just like that, but it was in my eyeballs. Like it felt like my eyeballs were like twitching or like flashing lights. I don't know. It was so weird. And so I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Like, am I going crazy? Like, what am I seeing right now? So obviously I started, what do? Go to Google. So I was like, what does it mean? You know, blah, blah, blah. And of course it said, oh, it means you're going through a spiritual awakening, like you're leveling up. Like if you see the bright lights, it means that, like, you know, your spirit guides are trying to connect with you so that you can go higher in like the spiritual world or whatever. So I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, you know? And so I finished smoking and I went to lay back down in my bed. And I was still scrolling, right? Like still trying to read. I was so tired and like my eyes were starting to close, but I was still like trying to keep reading stuff. I remember I was like falling asleep, but then I heard my grandma's voice and she was like, just go to sleep, Sandy. But she said it in Spanish. She was like, yeah, Sandy, duérmete. And when I heard it, I woke up. I was like, no way. Like, did I just hear my grandma tell me that? So I started like freaking out, but in a good way, because I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm doing something right because she's literally talking to me right now. So imagine when I go deeper, like I'm going to be able to have conversations with her or something, right? So that kind of like sealed the deal for me. And I felt so good in my heart because I was just like, oh my God, my grandma's with me. Like she just talked to me, you know, like it was just amazing to me. And so I fell asleep. And then that same morning, because when I fell asleep, it was already like 5 a.m. So I slept a couple hours. I woke up like at 10 and I had to go get groceries at Safeway. So I went to this, I was driving, and while I was driving, I noticed that there was a crow, right? It was like flying ahead of me, but I was paying attention to it. I don't know why. I'm like very like, I like to watch everything. So I noticed that it was like flying when I was still on the road. And then I noticed that it like flew towards Safeway where I was about to make the right turn. And so like I was like, okay, whatever. So I made the right turn, and then I went to go look for a parking spot, and I ended up parking right in front, like on the other side of like those cart metal things. I don't know what they're called, but pretty much where you go put your cart away. So I parked on the opposite side, right? So once I parked, I just kind of sat there, and then the crow, or a crow, I don't know if it was the same crow or a different, I'm not sure, but it like flew and it just landed on the metal thing, and it was just like staring right at me, right? And so for a second I was like, what the heck? So I was like looking at it, then it was staring right at me, right? And then I noticed it turned its little head like this, right, to the side. And when it turned, I saw the little eyeball. It like flashed like white and then went back to black. But I don't think it flashed. I think it's just like the way their eyeballs are. I'm not even sure, but if you ever pay attention to a crow, like their eyes will turn. It looks like it flashes like white and then back to black. So when I saw that, I was just like, oh my gosh, like, am I a crow lady? Like, what is going on? Like, I really thought like, oh my God, that's what I am. Like, that's what happened to me. Like, my eyes were flashing like that. Like, no wonder, like, there has to be some connection. I started just like freaking out, and I was just like, man, did I just make like the best discovery about myself? And so I was so excited. And I remember that same day I came home and I tattooed myself a crow. So now this is why this is my tattoo right now. It's so ugly because I tried to cover it with a butterfly, and then right here there used to be a moon. It was like a half moon. I don't think you can really see it. So I did a moon and a crow right here. So I was already invested into this. I was just like, oh my gosh, crows are my life, you know? Probably like a couple days later, I was in my room and I had this mirror, right? Hold on. Okay, so I had this mirror, right? And so like, I was like, I was just in my room and I was like staring at it. And then I was like, okay. I was just talking to myself and I was like, okay, so I'm gonna stare into my soul and I'm gonna see the truth of like what I really am or who I am, right? Because when you're in the like spiritual journey, it's all about like, who are you? Like, find yourself, like, you know, become your higher self, blah, blah, blah. So I was just like, okay, I need to know, like, who am I, right? So I literally did this, like, I was staring so hard at myself and I was like looking all up in my eyeballs, and I was just like focused. And it's crazy because not instantly, it was probably like after a good like 5 minutes of staring at myself, but I was focused on one eye and I was staring deep. I went into like this, like, I don't know, I felt like I was in trance, like, and suddenly everything became like not foggy, but like blurry. So I knew I was like somewhere else mentally. And I looked inside my eyeball and I saw a bunch of crows like flapping their wings like all around my eye. And like when I saw that, I just instantly like came back to life. I was like, wait, hold on, what was that? And I was just like, dang, like that's more confirmation. Like I probably do have something to do with the crows, you know? And so now that I think back to it, I'm like, that was like a warning, you know, like you're about to mess with the wrong stuff. But I took it as like, oh, that's confirmation. I'm a crow lady. Like, yep, that's me. After that, it kind of freaked me out, but I was just always so like eager to like learn more and find out more and like go deeper, right? So then I bought some tarot cards and like I started trying to like, you know, read my future. I don't even know. And so I was already beginning to go a little too deep with this stuff. Oh my gosh, just a little bug from my plants. And so I was already in deep, and I had created an altar. So I had created a table. I literally built it from scratch. Like I went to Home Depot, I bought the legs, the wood, like, you know, put the legs on there. I painted it all black. I put like glitter on it. Like it was honestly nice the way I made it. But I don't think I have a picture because, yeah, that was so traumatizing. I deleted everything. And I put all my crystals on there. I had crow feathers on there. I had seen how you have to have like the 5 elements in order to make it like a strong altar. You have to have like something from the ocean. So I think I had like seashells. I had a piece of wood that I found, that I bought at Goodwill. And dude, you guys, this wood thing, it was like a piece of wood, but it had like lines on it like all around, and it was just like a block, right? But I have no idea what this thing was used for, but I knew it had horrible energy, but there was a part of me that would force me to ignore these things. And I know that was just the enemy like controlling me, you know, trying to make me think like, oh no, this is fine, this is great, you know, it's all part of it. I started noticing that like I wanted to be up at night a lot. Like I would sleep during the day and I would just be up at night, and I would just, you know, have my crystals. I would turn on the candles and just be sitting in the dark, and I would sit on the floor, and I had this big mirror right in front of the altar. And I just remember that every time I would be in the dark and I looked at myself in the mirror, I just felt this like strong like energy. I felt this power within me, like, and it's crazy because I felt scared of myself, but at the same time it felt good. Like it felt like, you know, like I could take over anything. I had the world in my hands, you know. But I was scared all like the whole time. There was a part of me that was scared deep inside, but then there was the other part of me that was like, don't be a scaredy cat, like do it. At that point, I was like doing weird stuff at night. I would play like Amazonian music, and I would turn on all the candles, and I had these big rainbow candles, and like rainbows, okay, when I seen like, you know, in the spiritual realm, they use a lot of rainbows. Like they use all different colors. And like at the time I was like going through a phase where my hair was changing colors all the time. Like I was going through the rainbow too. And so I would turn on the candles, and then I'd start like dancing. Like I'd be doing some weird stuff, like, you know, stuff like that. And I thought it was like cool. I didn't even know what I was doing, but the thing is, like, it felt like something was controlling me. So in reality, I was doing these things, but I wasn't in control, if that makes sense. I was just kind of letting things happen, and I wasn't questioning it. I was just like, you know, this is what I am now. And so I remember I was already kind of deep in it, and I even started doing tarot readings for a couple people. And every single time I did a reading, you guys, I'd be like, like, okay, this card, like it says like, I'm not even doing it right now. But I was like shaking, like trembling the whole time. Like it did not feel good at all. I felt like it just felt so wrong, but I was just fighting it just to do it, you know, just to make the person like feel good, or I don't even know. It was really dumb, honestly. And every single reading that I did was negative. There was never anything positive in any of them. And so I just felt like, you know, people wanted to know stuff though, you know. They'd be like, okay, yeah, like do a reading for me, like blah blah blah. And that's just horrible. Like I regret it so much. Like, oh my gosh, now thinking back, I'm like, ugh, like what was wrong with me? But yeah, so I started playing with the cards. Oh, one thing that I would do all the time, I had sage and palo santo. So apparently, you know, like palo santo is like a good cleansing wood. So it clears out negative energies, you know, blah blah blah. And sage does too, supposedly. But in reality, all that did was just bring extra spirits into my room. It just brought all this negative energy into my room. And like, I didn't realize how heavy and how strong it was getting, you know. But I was just like, I thought it was just like good spiritual energy. Like, I don't know, I was so delusional. And so I remember It was probably like already October, like the beginning of October. And I went to the crystal store, and then they told me that, or I forgot what it was called. I'll try to find the crystal's name. But it was like this really pretty, like, it doesn't even look like a crystal. It looks like a piece of metal or something, but it's rainbow. I don't even know if it's man-made or not. It could be. I don't know. But it was like this rainbow looking one. They said that it pretty much makes you connect, like it makes you stronger so that you're able to see more into like the spiritual world, or like it connects you even more, you know? So I bought it and I was like, oh yeah, like this is taking me next level, right? And then I had also bought this little blue one. It's like light blue, kind of grayish, kind of clear. It's called Celestite, I think. I'm probably saying everything wrong, but whatever. And that one was actually nice. Like it's cute. It looks cute, but it's not cute. And that one is supposed to connect you to your angels, right? And so I was like, yes, anything to connect me to my grandma. Like I just need it, you know? So I got both of them. And so it was this one night. I was up and it was like 3 a.m. again, because my sleeping schedule was so off. I was up all night, and I decided that I was gonna go outside and smoke, you know? So I went outside and I was smoking my little joint or whatever. And then I had the crystals in my pocket, and I was like, what if I like do something right now, you know, like to connect to something? So then I went on my phone, you guys, and I was on Pinterest. And then I had found this, it was like a chant that was for the Morrigan goddess. So apparently that's every time I say her name, like, oh my God, my throat gets like weird. But anyway, in Jesus' name, I cancel that. Okay, so this chant was about her, right? And it was pretty much like to connect you with her. So it was kind of like, oh, give me your eyes, or let me be your eyes, or let me be your heart. Like I don't remember. I don't even know if I want to put it in if I find it, but because it's not worth it. I don't even want anyone to go and do that. But pretty much I found it on Pinterest, and I was like, I'm gonna try it, you know? So I went back outside, and I was standing outside of my door. So I'm gonna kind of show you guys, like I'll probably insert a picture or something of how my backyard looks, so you guys can get an idea of like this whole scene. And so I had one crystal, the blue one on one hand and the other one on the other hand, right? And so I memorized the chant, and I was standing there just in the dark, completely dark. It was like 3 a.m. and I was staring off into the darkness, and I started saying it, right? And so I like closed my eyes, and I was just saying it over and over again. And then suddenly I saw, my eyes were closed, and I saw this thing, like it was like just a shadow that was far away, but I could see that there was eyeballs on it. Like the eyeballs were staring at me, right? But it was from far away. So I just kept my eyes closed, and I was like staring, like looking at it, and it was coming closer to me, right? But my eyes were closed, and it was coming closer and closer. And then I started getting scared, because I was like, oh my gosh, like it's getting close. But because my backyard is so like big, it was far away, so I kind of had time to like kind of like freak out, you know? And so it was coming closer and closer, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like I don't know if I want to like let it get too close. And when it got to the point where it was probably like that far away from me, I freaked out and I opened my eyes. But when I opened my eyes, it was still there. Like I could still see it. So I just was like, like I just jumped in, like I threw the crystals on the floor. And then I looked up, and like it was gone, like it wasn't coming towards me. But I have like, we have like this little, it looks like a little barn, but it's just like a garage outside, and the wall is white, right? It's painted all white. As soon as I dropped the crystals, it's like that shadow went straight to like the wall. And I just saw this big, huge, like shadow. And it was a person, obviously, but it had like this kind of like a coat that was like, it had so many feathers. I'll probably like draw it or something and like insert a picture of it somewhere here. And so it was just huge. It was like as big as the whole garage, you know? So I was just freaking out. I was like, oh my God. So I just was staring at it for a couple minutes, and I'm sorry for saying oh my God. But yeah, and it was so big, and I was just like, oh my goodness, like what am I looking at right now? And then I just got scared. I left the crystals outside. I just ran in my house, and I was like, no, I'm done. Like, I'm done for the night. That was enough for tonight. And I was so scared. Like, I don't even know how I kept pushing through. Like, everything was scaring me, but yet I was still there, like trying to dig deeper. So then, after that, I kind of took some days to like chill out, because I was like, okay, girl, like that was a little crazy. Like, you're seeing stuff now, and like you connecting to those things. Like, no. And then after I did that, I swear the crows were like more connected to me. They would wait outside of my door. Like, they'd just be waiting, like on the roof or even outside. They'd just be waiting for me to feed them. And it even got to the point where they left. I found, I wonder if I have a video. I'll probably, if I find it, I'll post it. So they left me a squirrel's foot at my doorstep. And I at the time I saw it like, oh, they're so grateful, you know, that I'm feeding them, like they want to give me a gift. But no, there was literally a squirrel's foot, like just ripped off, like it was just the foot outside of my doorstep. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like they're so sweet, like they love me, you know, not knowing that was literally like witchcraft. And I was just over there like, ugh, I don't know, it was weird. It did freak me out though, so I just kind of like grabbed some gloves, picked it up, and like threw it somewhere. That kind of freaked me out, but I was like, whatever. They're just birds. Days went by. It was probably like October 10th. And I remember my sister, she had came home one day, and she was like, oh, Sandy, did you see, like, there's a dead crow down the street? And like people keep running it over. She was like, I just feel bad for it, you know? And then I was like, oh, really? Like, that's so sad. But then one time I was actually driving, I was going somewhere, and I drove down that street. And I was driving, and I saw this truck that was coming by, or coming the opposite way, and I watched it like run over the crow, like just like smashed it, right? And it did make me a little sad. I was like, oh, like dang, they keep just like running it over so much. And so I was like, maybe I should give it a proper burial, you know, and just like pick it up and then just, you know, make a whole dig in my backyard and just call it good. I was like thinking about it, but a part of me was like, oh, that's a little weird. Like, why am I gonna do that, you know? But like the negative thoughts, or the negative things that were controlling me, had more power over me than, I don't even know if it was probably the next day. I waited till it was nighttime. And so I drove my car and I had a shoebox and I had a bag and I had gloves. And so this bird was already, oh my God, it stinks so bad. Like it was already like probably like a week old. I don't even know. And it was so stinky and nasty. And it was barely even like together. It was like, I don't know. It just was like bones and feathers and the head, and it was just all crushed up. But somehow I scooped it all up and I put it in the bag, and then I put the bag in the box, and then I drove home. Well, literally it was only like 30 seconds. And then I grabbed the box and I just put it outside in the backyard somewhere where my dogs wouldn't get it. And then, so I was like, okay, I need to bury this crow. But I was scared. I was like, okay, I'm going to leave it for like tomorrow or something. Because I was just like, it just doesn't feel right. Like I was already creeped out. And so I waited a couple days, like 3-4 days. And I decided that, because I was so scared, like this was so wrong, and I just didn't trust my intuition, but I was fighting it the whole time. And so I was like, okay, how am I gonna make myself comfortable? So I thought, I could just bury it when it's like 5 a.m. At 6 or maybe even 7-ish is when the sun barely starts to come up. So I was like, at least mentally I'll know that it's almost daytime, so it'll still be dark and I just won't feel as scared, you know? So I was like, okay, so I'm gonna do that. So I stayed up all night waiting for it to be like 5. And so I went outside and I started digging behind this tree that's behind my room. And it's like a little tree. It's always been rotten, but I dug the hole. I had found this little heart crystal. It was like the rose quartz, so it was like pink little crystal, and it was shaped like a heart, like naturally. So I thought it was the cutest thing ever, and it was like so tiny, like this. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna give that crystal to the crow, and like, you know, that way it's like life. I'm giving it love, you know. I put the crow in the hole and then I grabbed the crystal. Like, I laughed because I'm just like, now that I'm saying it again, it's just like, damn, I was so ridiculous. Like, what was I even thinking? But I obviously was not thinking, because I was being controlled by these like evil spirits and stuff. I remember I was so scared that I had my phone on and I had a picture of my dad. So my dad passed away when I was little, and like I really wanted to connect with him too, like when I was on this spiritual journey. So I told myself, oh, if I have that picture of my dad, like he's gonna protect me right now, you know, like I'm gonna feel good. No, I did not feel good. He did not protect me from anything, okay? And so I was like doing a prayer, and I was just like, oh, okay, little crow, like, you know, I give you this heart, and I give you my love. Like, I'm giving you my heart. I literally said that. I'm giving you my heart. Like, what? To a freaking crow? Like, oh my God. Anyway, so I was like, I give you my heart and all my love, and like I just pray that, you know, you move on to the other world in peace, and you know, like whatever. That's what I said. And so I had all the candles on, you know, I had black candles and red and white and yellow and blue. Like, I don't know what I thought I was doing with all of those, but yeah. And so I was closing my eyes, right? And I had already, I put the heart in there and stuff. Yeah. And then I had covered it before I did the prayer. So it was already all covered, and I still had the candles on. And so I was just sitting there like, you know, crisscross applesauce. And my eyes were closed because I was so scared. Like, I didn't even want to open my eyes. And then suddenly, it was fall, you guys. So, you know, there's a whole bunch of dead leaves everywhere, like crunchy leaves, right? So suddenly I start to hear these footsteps, right? I just hear the leaves like, you know, but it was like more slow steps. And I heard it from far away, and it was coming from the same direction that I saw the eyeballs walking towards me, right? Like the previous time when I was like trying to connect to the freaking crackhead goddess. Just getting to the Morgan goddess, whatever. Ugh, I hate saying it, you guys. Oh my God, my throat. Like, why does it do that? Okay. And so then after that, I started freaking out. I was like, oh no, it's coming back again. But I was keeping my cool. I was just like, just close your eyes. Like, just ignore it. And the footsteps were getting closer and closer until they stopped. And I was just waiting, like, what is about to happen? And suddenly, I felt this feather caress my cheek. Like, I just felt it, like, do this, you know, just really softly. And I was like, as soon as I felt it, I opened my eyes and, like, turned, and there was nothing there. Like, there was nothing there. And so I was like, oh, like, thank you, Lord. Like, well, no, not thank you, Lord. I was not even thanking the Lord because I was not even believing in God at that point. But I was just like grateful that there was nothing there when I opened my eyes. And so then I was like, all right, it's time to wrap this up. Like, I turned off all the candles, whatever. I was like, okay, I'm going to sleep now. So I got up and it was already like 6 a.m., but I was barely going to go to sleep. So I fell asleep. So this whole time I was still talking to the guy, right? Like the vegan guy. And so he thought that I was weird, but he was never honest with me. Like, he didn't tell me, like, girl, what are you doing? Like, the crows are creepy. Like, stop doing that, you know? And because I had this kind of like intimidation, or like I was intimidating to the point where he felt like he couldn't tell me anything because I would get angry. Like, I had this horrible ego. Like, if anyone told me that I was wrong, like, oh, I would chew their head off. Like, it was just bad. Like, I was a mean person at the time. And like, I thought that I was all about love and peace. But as soon as somebody started questioning like what I was doing and like my new beliefs, oh, it became a problem. Like, I would be so angry. Like, I would throw things. Like, it was just horrible. It was turning me into a horrible person. And so he didn't tell me anything. He just kind of would be like, okay, yeah, like, yeah, okay, weirdo, you know? And so me and him decided that we were gonna do shrooms on Halloween because he had told me that he had read that vegans, for some reason, since they're more pure, you don't have any death in your body because you're not eating animals and stuff, that, you know, you're able to reach like a higher level of understanding, especially when you're on psychedelics, right? So I just thought this was great because I had done acid before when I was like a teenager, when I was like 18, 19. And I mean, I had a really bad experience, but I also had a really good experience. And so I was just like, man, if I'm vegan, for sure I'm gonna have a great experience, you know? And I was so eager to like just learn more. And since I was trying to connect with my grandma and my dad, I was like, this is perfect. Like, ooh, I'm gonna be so in there. Like, I'm probably gonna see things that I never seen. And sure enough, I did, but it was not the way I thought I was gonna see things. Leading up to that day, we had went to like a Halloween store or something. So my sister saw this black crow, right? It was like a little statue. And she's like, oh, Sandy, come. Like, look, it's so cute. Like, you know, since you love crows, like, you should buy it. And I was just like, oh, you're right. Like, it's cute. Let me buy it. And so I got this thing and I brought it home. And I put it on my altar. So now at this point, it was completed. Like, my altar was like complete. Like, it felt like it was solid. And it was already about to be Halloween. And me and the guy had decided that we were gonna do the shrooms at night. But my sister had got invited to this Halloween party. And since she didn't have a boyfriend at the time, she was kind of by herself. And so she wanted me to go with her. And so she was like, please, can you just go with me first? And then you can come home and like do your shrooms and hang out with the dude or whatever. And so I was like, all right, sure. So I told him like, oh, is it cool? Like, I'm just going to go with her for a bit. And then once I get home, I'll call you and you just come over and then we'll do the shrooms. And so he's like, yeah, sure, that's fine. So we go to this Halloween party. I had dyed my hair green, you guys, and I'm pretty sure I have a video of it. I had dyed my hair green, so I was looking like a whole witch, like for real. And my costume was Joker, right? You know, everyone was at a bad place at that party, and it was just horrible. Like, the energy was so bad. Me and my sister were not having a good time, and she felt off too, and so she was like, yeah, let's just go home, like, this is not fun. And so the night was already like had horrible energy. And I remember that night it was like a blue moon or something, and it was talking about how, I'll probably find the picture of what it was or what it said. But pretty much, I guess, you know, on Halloween, the veil between the spiritual world and like our world is like really thin. So I thought that was a good thing, because I was like, oh yeah, like I'm super connecting, you know? And so we came home, and I was calling the guy, and he was not answering. Finally, he did wake up. It was probably like 1:30, almost 2. So he comes over, and then we're like, man, the night's already like halfway gone. Like, we gotta hurry up and do this. So we had seen that if you crush up the shrooms, like blend them, and then you add lemon juice, the vitamin C activates it faster. And sure enough, it did. Within like 25 minutes, 30 minutes, we were already feeling it. We were hanging out here in my room, and he had told me that that was his first time trying shrooms, right? And I had already done psychedelics, so I just was kind of like trying to be careful, like not scare him or anything, you know? So I was trying to just keep my cool and be controlled. And so we were in the room, and like we both were feeling weird. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think it was just all the bad energy that was in my room that was making us like feel uncomfortable, but I just didn't know that that's what it was. And so he was like, maybe just play some music, you know, like maybe we'll feel better. And so I started playing some music, and it was just making us feel even worse. And I was just like, oh, like not this song. I just kept changing the songs. And he was just like, okay, this is not helping. And so he's like, how about we just go outside? And I was like, really? You want to go outside? He just wanted to get out of my room. And so I was like, okay. But then since we were already like feeling it, I started to get really, really cold. So I was like, all right, let me just put some like pajamas on. So I got this fuzzy sweater. I had this really big fuzzy sweater, and it was black. So I had these socks. They're like Mike Wazowski socks. They were like bright green, and each foot had one eyeball, right? So I was wearing these socks. I didn't have shoes on yet. I put on my pajama pants, and then I put the black hoodie on. And so I was already starting to trip. So I looked down at my feet, and it looked like 2 eyes were staring at me, but it was like real eyeballs, you know, but it was obviously just the socks. And so I started staring, and like I kind of got like locked into it. So I was like standing up, you know, and so I went like this, like I was like leaning forward. So then my hoodie went on my head, right? And it was like pointy. And so I was like this, just doing that for a while. So he told me I looked like a witch. And so it was freaking him out, but he didn't tell me in the moment that I looked like a witch. He was just like, okay, Sandy, like stand up, stop doing that. Like, let's get out, let's go outside. And so I was like, oh, okay, sorry. It's because the eyes were freaking me out, you know? And he's like, yeah, let's just go outside. The first thing we saw when we went outside was the stars, like how pretty they looked. And it was crazy because you can see the lines. It looked like geometric shapes, like everything was connected. Like, and the stars looked so pretty, and they were like so bright, and like we were just like dazing off, like just staring at them and so amazed by them, right? But then of course, me being me, I start to like want to look everywhere else. And then I noticed that the pine trees, they looked like just dark shadows, right? So I started kind of like trying to see like, what is that? It's hard to explain, but I just knew that they were witches. Like I could see how like the pointy part of the tree was like a witch's hat. And then you guys know how big the pine trees are. Like they were huge. And then it started like making sense in my head that it was like these horrible like dark forces, you know, that are like, you know, witches and warlocks and stuff that are controlling the whole world pretty much. I started like looking at them, and then I started realizing they're so strong, like they're so big and they're everywhere, you know? And then I started looking everywhere, like even just around me, like on top of my house, even on the ground, on the grass, on the trees that were outside, the tree where I planted the crow. There was so many creatures, like so many creatures, like it was weird. Like they look like demonic, but also some of them just look like, you know how like in the Lord of the Rings, like the trees are like creatures, well, something like that. But they were like, there was even like snakes all around the trees, but they weren't snakes. They had like weird faces, and like it was just a whole bunch of weird spirits that were all around. And I was just, but they felt evil. And it was Halloween night, so that was a horrible time to do it. But I guess I had to go big or go home, you know. And so I was freaking out at that point, because I was like, oh my gosh, why am I seeing all this stuff? Like, this is not what I wanted to see. And the guy, he looked at me, because he was like looking at the stars, and then he looked at me and noticed that I was like low-key freaking out, but I just wasn't saying anything. And he's like, what's wrong with you, Sandy? Like, why aren't you like so excited about this? Like, this is so beautiful. It's like so amazing. Like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you enjoying it? You know, like he was getting mad at me because I wasn't like, oh my gosh, you know. But I was looking at something else. Like, I couldn't enjoy it. I was freaking out. I was just like I was becoming mute. I couldn't even talk. Like, it was like I was so in shock of everything. And then he looked at me and he's like, whoa, like, why does your face look like that, right? And I was like, what? And so I was staring at him, and his face looked like an avatar. Like, you know the Avatar movie, how they're so pretty, like the blue skin and like the glow in the dark, like dots and lines and all that rainbowy stuff. Like, that's how he looked, and it looked so beautiful. I was just like, oh my god, like, that's so cool, you know. But I wasn't like all excited about it because I was freaking out. But when he was looking at me, he was like, what's wrong with your face? Like, why is it doing that? And I was like, doing what? And he was just like, I don't know, it's just like switching to like weird like different faces, like it's not you. And I was just like, what? And but I couldn't even really talk. I was just like, huh? And he was just like, yeah. And then it started freaking him out, because I could see it in his face. He was just like he was just like looking at me like, whoa, you know, like scared. And then he said that I even turned like, I don't know if he said like a crow, but like it was just my face was changing into other things. And like, you know, the crows are known for like shape shifting and stuff. That's what they use them for, like witches and stuff. So my face was pretty much like switching like that, because I felt that night they were gonna take my soul. Like, that's it. That's what they were gonna do. They were gonna take my soul. And I already felt like it was starting to happen, because I felt like I didn't really have control over myself as soon as I went outside. And so he kind of started getting scared, and then he's like, well, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you being weird? And I was just like, well, you don't see them? And then he was like, see what? And I was like, the witches. And as soon as I said that, he like freaked out, and he was like, what witches? And I was like, over there, like, look, you know. And then I pointed to where all the pine trees were, and he was like, no. He's like, that's what you're seeing right now? Like, you know, because I was like in a negative mindset, and he was like just being positive, you know. And I was like, yeah, like, I don't know why I'm seeing that. Like, it's weird. And he was like, Sandy, what's wrong with you? Like, you can't be part of the light and the dark. Because this whole time, I thought that I was light. Like, I really thought that I was practicing, like, light things. And I was, like, spreading love and doing all this stuff. And he's like, you can't do both. You have to pick a side. Either you're dark or you're light. And I was like, no, I have to be able to do both. Like, in order for me to bring light to the darkness, like, I have to be okay with the darkness, you know? Like, I wanted to be a part of both. And he was just like, no, like, you're so wrong. That's not how it works, you know? And then instantly, that's when it, like, clicked in my head. I was like, oh, what? Like, what am I thinking? Why am I trying to be part of both? Like, that was just a way to, like, confuse me and trick me into going into the darkness. But I was being manipulated to think that I was bringing light to the darkness, you know? But I was practicing just dark stuff. So he was just like, no, you can't do both. Like, snap out of it. Like, you can't do that. You're either light or you're dark. Like, choose one, you know? And then I was like, oh no, like, I messed up. I really messed up. Like, that's when I realized, like, okay, girl, like, what did you get yourself into? You know, I started questioning myself. And then I was like, I don't want to be out here. Like, I was so scared. And he's like, okay, it's fine. Like, we'll go back inside. And like, we both looked up at the sky. And I kid you not, like, we saw a shooting star. And so we thought that it was gonna be like a good thing, you know, but it just went downhill from there. And like, so we ran back in the house because I was freaking out. And as soon as we came back in, we were already like super high on the shrooms. And so he noticed like my altar. As soon as we stepped in, he was like, what is this? It's like he started, you know, we both snapped out of it and we were seeing it for what it was. And he was just like, oh my gosh, like, what is this? Why did you do this? He's like, what are you doing, Sandy? Like, what's wrong with you? Why would you make all of this? And it was like the altar with all the feathers and the crows and like all this stuff. And he was just like grabbing everything. And you guys, the way he was crying, like, I kid you not, it scared me so much. Like, I never seen this guy cry. I mean, I did see him cry before, but not the way that he was crying. Like, he was like, ah! Like, you guys, he was in pain. Like, it was horrible to, like, you could just tell that was horrible and it was affecting him so bad. And I just was like emotionless. Like, I felt like I couldn't even feel. Like, I just felt like I was just existing. And like, that's how I know they were like taking my soul or trying to take my soul, because I couldn't, like, I just felt powerless. I felt weak. Like, my body just felt like it was just starting to like break down on me. And I was just looking at him from far away, and he was like looking, and he was in front of my mirror, right? And then suddenly he's like, whoa, like, he started doing this in front of the mirror. He's like, what is that? And then he started like doing something, and then he started like dancing and doing this weird stuff. He started doing the same thing that I was doing when I was like up at night with the candles and doing weird stuff, you know? And so it started freaking me out. And so what, I didn't tell you guys this, but one time when I was doing that, I put the music on, like the Amazonian music, and I turned all the rainbow candles on, and I was like on the floor, like praying supposedly, but I was like doing some weird stuff with my hands. And then suddenly I stood up, but it like forced me to fall back down. Like, I had no control over my body at this point. And I fell back down, and then my head just started doing this, right? Like, I was just doing that like over and over again. And it was just going and going. And I was just like, I could not control it. I couldn't stop. And I was trying and I couldn't. It was so weird. It was like something was literally controlling me, and I couldn't stop until it got to the point where I felt like I couldn't breathe anymore. And I was just like almost suffocating. And then it felt like something just released me. Like, it just released me, and then I stopped, and I was like, like, I thought I was literally about to like suffocate or pass out or something. But that happened before, like when I was by myself, right? And so when he started doing all this dancing and stuff, he reminded me of that moment, you know? And then when I started thinking about that moment, then a vision came into my head, and I saw that there was 3 witches standing around a fire, and it was like a wooden, no, not wood. It was like rocks, right? It was like a circle, or like a, how do I call it? It almost looked like a well, right? Like a well where you get water from, like just made out of rocks. But there was a fire in the middle, and I was naked inside the fire, and I was like just twirling around, and they had like these wands and things, and some of the one of them was just using her hand, and they were just like doing stuff like this, and I was like twirling, and they were like laughing. They were like pretty much just controlling me. So then when I saw him doing that, I realized that when that happened to me, that I was like doing this and being controlled, it was because the witches were literally controlling me in that moment. And so that's when I realized, like, oh my gosh, they really were like controlling me. Like this whole time they've been controlling me, and I didn't even know. And the worst part was they were just laughing at me, and I was just like their little puppet, you know? And they were just cracking up, like enjoying it, and I was burning inside the fire. And then he was like, I was like, stop, like, what are you doing? And then he was like, ugh, like he snapped out of it. He's like, oh my God, like there's something in this. Like it was almost like the mirror would like hypnotize whoever would like walk in front of it, you know? And so he was like, you gotta get rid of this stuff. Like as soon as he snapped out of it, he's like, this is so bad. Like he was still even like crying and sad, and he was scared of me. At that point, he was scared of me. He didn't even want to get close to me. Like he was just like, just sit somewhere, like I don't know, just don't move, you know? And I was just like crying like in silence, because I was just like, oh my God, like I could feel like my body was like becoming weak, and like my soul was leaving. Like, you guys, I don't even know how to explain it, but it just felt that way. And he was just like, because I was like, I feel weak, Lorenzo, like I just need you to help me. Like, can you help me? He was like, well, I don't know how to help you. And then he was like trying to feel the energy in my room, and it was all horrible until he went in the bathroom. And I think in the bathroom, since that's where I kind of had like my happy moments, because I would smoke marijuana in there, the energy was just different in there. So he's like, it feels good in here. Like, just sit in there. Just sit on the toilet. Like, obviously, I was like, the lid was closed or whatever. But he's like, just sit on the toilet. Just sit there, you know? And so I was like, okay. And then I was sitting there, but I still felt so weak, and I was like crying, and I just felt like I needed someone to help me, like someone to hold me, like hug me, you know? And then he was just like, he didn't know what to do. Like he was freaking out. And I got to the point, you guys, I felt like I was dying. Like I really felt like I was dying. And I was just like, I need you to hug me. Like at this point, I wasn't even asking him. I just told him, you need to hug me. Like, you need to hug me now, because I feel like I'm dying. Like they're taking my soul or something, but you need to hug me. And because he wasn't into like the witchcraft and stuff, he wasn't into the crystals. Like, yeah, of course, the first time we met, we connected because of that, but he was never really into it. So I felt like he was my light, you know? He was the one that saved me that night, pretty much. And so he's like, okay, like, just come lay down. He made me change into white clothes because I was wearing the black hoodie, and it was just freaking him out. And I had my green hair. So he's like, just wear something white. So I just put on like this white dress that I had. And like we laid down on the bed, and he hugged me. And like we were just hugging, like wide awake, and I was just staring off into the distance, and I could just see all these like visions of witches, and like they were just laughing at me, and like they were just like, I don't know, everything just kind of, it was like I was going back in time and understanding like how everything that I did was wrong, and everything that I did was because I was being controlled, you know, spiritually, and I just wasn't aware. because I connected to this Morgan goddess, and I connected to this evil, to all these evil things, and I invited so many spirits and so many evil things into my room. So I was deep in there, and it was just like a moment of reflection, you know. And so I just told him, like, let's just stay awake until it's daytime, and then when it's daytime, we can go out there and we can dig out that crow, because I felt like I needed to get my heart out of there, like the heart crystal, because I had gave my heart to the crow, like, to, you know, and it was witchcraft. I pretty much had like binded myself to that. And so I was just like, I need to go dig that out. And so we waited until it was like daytime, and then we got up super early. As soon as the sun came out, we went outside and we started digging, right? You guys, I kid you not. When I put the crow in when I dug the crow in, I probably made a hole that was probably like this big. Okay, it was not big. It was probably like, yeah, like this big. Like that. Okay. When we dug outside, let me tell you, it was huge. It was like a huge hole, and we could not find anything. And yeah, maybe the crow had already disintegrated or whatever. Already, not disintegrated. What does it mean? Like decomposed into the dirt or whatever. But I know the crystal was not going to do that. And I could not find the crystal. We dug and I just did not find it at all. So then I was freaking out, because then I was like, man, like, they got me. Like, there's no way. Now I can't undo this, you know? So I was freaking out. And then by that time, my mom and my sister woke up, and they're like, what are you guys doing? Like, why are you guys digging a hole? And so then I told them all about it, because I hadn't told them anything that I did. They didn't know that I buried the crow back there. And so I told my mom everything, and she was against it the whole time. Like, she did not want me to be, like, you know, she is Christian, and she would pray for me, and like, she'd tell me that I was wrong and that God was the only way. But I was, you know, I was too stuck on what I was believing, and I was like, no. But she was like, it's okay, mija, like, don't worry, you're fine. God is gonna remove all of this. Like, it doesn't matter if you didn't find the crystal or whatever. Like, that does not define, you know, your life. Like, you did not give your life to them. Like, God can break through anything. Like, don't worry. And so I was just like, okay. And so the guy ended up going home, because we didn't sleep at all, and he was freaking out, and I feel so bad because I had traumatized him. We were both so traumatized for a while. And so I remember that same day, like, I burnt everything. We made a fire in our backyard, and I just burnt everything. So when I was still laying down, I realized that the crow that I had bought pretty much was like what sealed the deal. So when I was laying there, something just told me, like, get up and break that crow. And so I got up just quickly, and I grabbed the crow, and I just smashed it on the ground. And as soon as I did that, the guy, he looked at me, he's like, you broke the spell. You know, like, it just came out of him. And I was like, what? And so back then, I hadn't told him about it, but pretty much my grandpa, he's a musician. So when he lived in Mexico with my grandmother who passed, he had left her just for a moment to be with this lady, but this lady was actually a witch. And so he was with her for a while, but she, obviously my grandma was a queen. Like, he went back to my grandma, but this lady, this witch, had already casted a spell on the whole family. And apparently she had threw it into the ocean so that nobody can find it, and so that the spell could never be broken, right? And this is why I know God made me go through all this in order for me to be able to break my family from this curse, you know. He told me, he's like, you broke the spell. It just like made me think like, oh my gosh, like that was the whole purpose of this whole thing. So I felt good in the moment because I'm like, okay, like, you know, I probably did break the spell, so I'm probably good now. And so I burnt everything. I burnt the crystals. Obviously the crystals, they didn't actually burn. Like I did put them in the fire, but nothing happened to them. So after I burned everything, I had to dig them out of the ashes, and I went and threw them in the ocean. Like I threw them deep, and I just prayed to God that, you know, nobody ever finds them. Cleared everything out. Like I asked God for forgiveness, and I was like, you know what, I messed up. Like I realize now that if it wasn't for you, I would have been, you know, they would have took my soul. I could have became a witch myself. I could have, you know, become like a demonic person. I tried to, you know, get closer to God. I started reading my Bible. I started trying to just change the way I was, you know, I was thinking about things. And I was traumatized for a while. I couldn't go outside when it was dark because I would cry. I'd just be scared. I had to cover all the mirrors everywhere. Like I didn't like to look at myself. I was scared of everything. Like everything was just scary to me. Anything that was shaped like a triangle that reminded me of like a witch, I would throw it away, or I would make my family throw their things away. Like it was just all very traumatizing. And I would have a lot of nightmares after that because I started feeling this anger towards like crows and towards everything that was evil. But that was only making the negative energy attract to me, or like become more attracted to me. And so I started having dreams with like fairies, and they'd tell me that I was connected to Lilith. And then I'd see snakes everywhere, and like it was just I was seeing a lot of demonic spirits because now I had opened that door. They were able to mess with me, and their goal was to make me go crazy. And you guys, I was going crazy. I'm not gonna lie, I was going crazy. It got to the point where I just wanted to kill myself because I was just like, there's no way I can live a normal life now. Like not after what I did. Like there's no way. Like I just need to die so that this can all go away, and I'll just be fine. I'll be fine because I'll be dead. You know, if I hadn't turned to God, then who knows what could have happened to me. But it was very, very damaging to my life. And after that, for like a whole year, I was not okay. I couldn't live a normal life. I was like scared of everything. Like I would overthink everything. When me and the guy tried to hang out, like I would go over to sleep over at his house. He did not, like, we did not sleep at all. We couldn't sleep because we were always seeing like dark shadows in his room. We were seeing like in our dreams, we would see these witches trying to have intercourse with both of us. Like we would dream about the same things when we were together. So then we'd end up like staying awake. We'd be like, you know what, let's just not go to sleep. Let's just stay awake all night. And like we were sleep deprived because it was just so bad. Like they were just messing with us so much. And it got to the point where he couldn't handle it anymore. Like he was so scared, and I felt bad because it was my fault because I was the one that introduced all that negative stuff into the relationship. So I understood, you know, and I was like, okay, like if that's what you wanted, if you just want to be alone, like that's okay, like I understand. So then we just parted our ways, and eventually I got better. Like I started trying to dedicate my life to God, but not fully. I'm not gonna say I did because I didn't. After it kind of wore off, then I still get, to this day I still have demonic attacks, like spiritual attacks all the time. Like they still try to mess with me, but now that I'm like, my faith is so much stronger and I'm more connected to God, like there's only so much they can do, you know, and I'm no longer scared of them. Like, yeah, they come here, they pop up, whatever. I'm like, all right, whatever, disappear, go away. And, they do. But for a while, it was just very traumatizing. And their goal is to make you go crazy so you commit suicide. So then it's another life lost for God, After that, I started astral projecting. So I was seeing myself outside of my body, and I started seeing how there was all these demonic spirits that would come at me at night, and they'd try to like take my soul. They were still after my soul. There was this one time, there was this really big guy, but he was like really big, and I just remember he was like really tall, like huge, this huge guy, and he was like coming and trying to get in my window, and he was like laughing, because for some reason they just laugh all the time. It's like it's a joke to them. They're just trying to like humiliate you, He was trying to get in the window, and then I don't even know how it happened, but I saw myself come out of my body, and then I just saw something that was pulling. Like I couldn't see a hand or anything, but I just saw like there was this light, like my soul was coming out, and it was like I was like choking, because I was like, oh. So I could see myself, but I could feel that I was choking. And it was like trying to take it out, right? The light, it was like a white ball, and it was glowing, and it was like almost out of my mouth. It was like, like, about to come out. And then I just started praying, like, in Jesus' name, I like cancel whatever plans you or whatever you're doing. Honestly, I don't remember exactly what I said, but I just know as soon as I said Jesus's name, my light or my soul just went back into my body, and like boom, I laid back down, and then I was back into my own body again. And I felt like I woke up, and I was like like I was like out of breath, because they were literally trying to take my soul still. And so a couple more things happened like that, where I had like I had to fight with these demons, because they would just mess with me at night. They wouldn't let me sleep. Like they'd come on top of me, and like I'd be awake, and I could see that there was like a energy, like a spirit pretty much, but I couldn't control anything. Like I couldn't get it off of me, and like they were like draining me. It was like I just felt so weak, like they were just taking over me. And so like eventually it got to the point where like I started praying against it, but they didn't care. They still were like messing with me. Like they enjoyed, torturing me. And I remember this one time I felt this like energy coming, right? So I was laying in my bed, but I was awake. I was not asleep. I was awake. And I felt this energy coming from the left side. And it was dark. And I felt it, and it felt like wrong. And I was just like, God, please be with me right now. You need to be with me right now, because I need you. And I was like, please, God, be with me. And it was coming closer, and it was like already starting to like make me feel like, when you get like sleep paralysis that you can't move. I was starting to feel like that, and it was like attacking me, and I was starting to not be able to talk or not even pray. And so I started I got angry, like I got so mad, and I was like, God, please, you need to be here, because I am your daughter, and you need to be here for me. And then you guys, I kid you not, like this was the most beautiful experience of my life. I kid you not. Have you guys, okay, when you watch SpongeBob, when the house, like when I don't know, pretty much when it makes like the vibrating noise. That's how it felt. Like I could feel the vibration. And on the right side, I saw this, it was just like cloudy. It was like almost like a fog, but it was bright and it was white. And I just felt like a vibration. And as soon as he spoke, it like trembled the whole room. And it was like, I am him. I am here. I am him. I was just like, oh my gosh, I started crying because I didn't know if I should be scared or if I should be happy. But then as soon as he spoke, that thing went away. It just instantly vanished. And then once it vanished, I was just like, like I felt such a relief because I was like, oh my goodness, like God is with me. Like ever since that day, I just knew. I was like, okay, God is real. Like God just proved it to me. Like he just came and he made this go away. Like there, and you guys, I'm not even joking. I was awake when this happened. Okay, I was awake. I was not astral projecting. I was not out of my body. I was awake and I heard his voice. And it was the most powerful thing that I ever felt and heard. And it was just so beautiful. And I just broke down. And then as soon as I was able to like feel my body again, I just got on my knees and I started praying. And I started saying thank you to God because I knew that from that day, like I knew for a fact that he was not going to leave my side. And sure enough, he hasn't. I just was not being obedient and I was still doing the things that I was not supposed to do. And I kind of, once I got that security, I started to just kind of drift off a little bit. You know, I'm not saying I went back to doing crazy stuff. No, I didn't. But it for sure was like just the beginning to, you know, really make my relationship with him stronger. And ever since that, I've always had a lot of anger in me. Like for some reason, when I get angry, I get really, really angry. And it's just like this strong force that not even I myself can control sometimes. But I started using that in the spirit world. So now whenever I was having those demonic attacks, I would just get so angry. And then I would just imagine, like, you know, create the scene where I'm like killing these demons, like slicing their heads off or stabbing them straight in the head. And like that gave me my power back. And like now they can't mess with me. Like they try and they do this and this and that, whatever. They make out, the most they get out of me is like make me get angry or like they don't let me sleep at night. But other than that, I know God has my back and God is forever with me because now he's also like strengthening my gifts. And I just, it's so beautiful. Like now that I think of everything, the way it happened, like it was a horrible experience. And unfortunately, I had to deal with like the repercussions for like 2 years, right? But then it was so worth it because now I'm at a point where my intuition is so strong. Like God speaks to me on the daily. Like I can feel the Holy Spirit within me. Like there's not a day that I don't feel connected to God. And you know, it's still a journey. I'm not gonna say I'm perfect. No, I'm not gonna say, oh, I know how to read the Bible. Like no, I can't even memorize the verses. But of course, I'm still on that journey with God. And I just want everyone to hopefully, you know, learn something from this. And like if you have family members or just friends in general or anything that, you know, they've been into this type of stuff, like, you know, maybe have them watch this video because I think it's very important because the devil will amaze you before he betrays you, okay? And you will see all these beautiful things. Like crystals will make you think like, oh yeah, I'm healing. Oh yeah, this is just great. Like this is love. This is positive. This is like, you know, the best kind of divine energy. Like no, the only divine energy in this world is God's love, okay? And if you're not connected to God, if you're not connected to Jesus Christ, then yes, all this other love, like love is love, right? But it's not the same. It's not that divine energy. And like if you don't have God's protection, then you're in a lot of danger because once they have you hooked, like it's hard to get out. Even till this day, it's already what, October 14th, 2023, even to this day, I still get demonic attacks. I still get them. It's usually Tuesday nights or on the 13th of every month. You know, sometimes they just try to surprise me and stuff, but there's no running away from it. You know, I already opened that door, but now I am spiritually stronger so I can deal with it. But those people who aren't strong, you know, in their faith, and they don't have Jesus, they're gonna be weak and they're gonna be manipulated, and you know, maybe even they'll take their souls too without them realizing it. And honestly, you can always come back. Like, there's nothing stronger than Jesus, there's nothing stronger than God, so you can always go back to God. But it's just a matter of how deep do you get, you know, and are you able to find that help to get you out of that. Because once they know that they got you, once you try to run away, oh, it's over. They're not gonna let you go. It's not gonna be easy. It's not like they're just gonna be like, all right, you want to go to that side, go ahead. No, they're not gonna let you go, because now they know that, you know, they were able to get you once, so now they're not gonna want you to go with God. That's not what the devil wants. So that's why I think it's just so important. Like, you guys, don't mess with these things. Like, don't be like me, trying to, like, you know, figure everything out and like be all like, you know, curious about things. And because the whole time, if I would have listened to my intuition deep inside, and if I would have known that it was trying to tell me, like, this is wrong, like, stop doing this, you know, I could have saved myself from a lot of trauma, a lot of, you know, horrible experiences, because it was not good. It was all bad. There was nothing good that ever came out of this. So I just want everyone to be careful with those things. Let me know if you guys have any questions, or if you guys want me to talk about anything else. And don't be like me. I've been, you know, dreading to make this video because I felt like I was scared to be judged, because I was just like, man, everyone believes in crystals, everyone believes in sage and all these things, and I was just worried, like, they're gonna think I'm crazy, or like I'm dumb or whatever. But honestly, God has worked with me, and like, he's been patient with me, and I know that now I'm at a point where I don't care if you think I'm crazy. I don't care if you think I'm like not woke because I'm like, oh, religious or whatever. Like, honestly, what matters is your relationship with God. God he's the almighty God. Nothing can go above him. Nothing can go against him. So if you're with him, then who can be against you? Nobody. So I just want everyone to please be careful. And if you made it to the end of this video, I am so grateful for you, and I appreciate it. And I pray that God blesses everyone who watches this video, and hopefully, you know, you can strengthen your relationship with Jesus. I'm not sure if I'm actually gonna do any more videos. I just know God wanted me to share my testimony, so here it is. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys.